Hello, my name's David Linton. Welcome to Charts Today, this special edition where I'm going to just cover the Dow Jones 30 stocks and what's going on. And I've got lots of people asking me about the targets. They were only really announced last month. If you watch Charts Today over the years, you'll know that when I did Charts Today, I'd have 6 charts and I would click on a stock and we'd see all 6 charts change: my weekly, my daily, my 60-minute, and the 1% point and figure, the 0.5% point and figure, and the 0.1% point and figure. So this was my long-term, medium-term, and short-term view of the market. But now life has got a lot easier for me, and hopefully for anyone new using the targets. More and more people are adopting them, but lots of questions have been asked, so I want to just help answer those questions. So really what I'm looking for here is train tracks. So this is the medium term, the short term. So I only have to look at those 2 charts now, and I do have a long-term chart in the background if I want to refer to it. So this is 3M, for example. Short term, we are looking okay, but medium term, we're below the cloud. And as you saw on that long-term chart, it's not looking great. We're below the cloud. Downward targets. You do not want to be looking at stocks with those downward targets. You want to be focusing on the upside. And so you just literally have to go through. These are called tracker charts in Updata. Of course, Updata is compatible with over 30 different data sources. So you can just run these charts on whatever you've got, really. Bloomberg, Icon, you name it. Bar chart. There's a whole list of services that we're compatible with, even Yahoo, the free data service. And so what you can see here is the thrust targets. And so here, Amex gave an upside target that was kind of met. I'm using a factor of 2 to 1. So this is a 0.5% unit size. That would be the equivalent of a 0.5% log scale box size on point and figure. And here we see the 0.5% thrust target activated, giving a downside target. That target was given in August, and that's where we've got to. It's really uncanny just how these targets are met. So the key thing here is you do have a little bit of upside, but we are still below the cloud. And of course, I could go and look at the long-term chart, and you can see, even though we had these upside targets, the downside targets have started taking over and we're below the cloud. So not a great looking stock. So let's go through and just see where we can find some good looking stocks, because that's what we want, of course, if we're going long. So here we are above the cloud, Amgen, but no real stocks there, targets there on the medium term. Apple, we've talked about Apple a lot. There's these downside targets here, but then the upside we're seeing on the short term, but you've got counter trend positions. You want stocks where everything is rising or pointing higher with the targets. This is Boeing, not looking great for the targets. Looking at Caterpillar, we can see here short term looking okay, but we've got a tussle going on. These orange targets not yet activated, waiting to see which one gets activated. Chevron, we see here downside targets are not looking great there. Cisco, it's just literally a case of going through and looking at all the targets. And so we see here that these downside targets are really dominating there. They're the more recent targets, and that's what we really have to worry about. Coca-Cola, so we've got a downside target waiting to be activated, but some short-term upside targets, some 8% higher, but hitting cloud resistance. So this is a short-term bullish picture, but a medium term. And of course, if we look at the long term, again, these downward targets not looking great for Coke. So you really want to find charts where it's all looking good. Here we've got the Dow Inc. We go to Goldman Sachs. I'm just going to keep going until I find charts that are looking better. Goldman Sachs, US banks have got some really big downside targets, and that's not great. And if we look at Goldman's, there were upside targets, but these new little downside targets, some 17% lower, are kicking in. So that's really quite interesting, and we're seeing that on all the banking majors in the US at the moment. Honeywell, we see here, we've got downside targets as well. So it's really quite hard. Whilst we've got some good short-term news, it's really quite hard to find medium-term upside targets. As Home Depot, looking at Intel, waiting for these 2 orange targets to activate on the medium term, nudging new highs there on Intel. Again, waiting for this one to activate. This one could be interesting. And if we look at the long-term chart in Intel, we've already got a recovery play, but not quite through on the weekly cloud, but it's one of the better looking stocks so far. Looking at IBM, we see here with IBM, we've got this upside target there. the downside target is still dominant as the more recent targets there, so not so great. Johnson & Johnson, just going through and looking at the charts. So here, downside targets given and met, a little upside target given and met, but we are below the cloud there, so still not a great picture. We talked about banks. Let's take a look. That was JP Morgan. Let's take a look at McDonald's. Remembering this is the medium-term chart for McDonald's, the daily chart, and the 60-minute chart. So looking okay on the short term, but waiting for this new. If we get a new low, notice how that target was given and met. If we get a new low, that's going to activate that target as well. Merck, quite key there. Downside targets, really quite hard in the Dow 30 to find stocks with upside targets. Now Microsoft making new highs, that is one. Waiting for this short-term upside target to be activated. We don't really have much of a clear picture on the medium term other than that long-term chart, and even on the long term there's no really clear targets, but we are making new highs, and you can't deny new highs are good. Nothing but happy shareholders when you're making new highs in the stock. Looking at Nike, this one looking quite good on the medium term, having turned a corner and crossed there, so that's looking quite good. And short term we see that's looking pretty good too. So Pfizer, just running through these stocks here, downside targets for Pfizer not looking great. Procter & Gamble looking a little bit better there. Short term we've got upside targets and breaking to new highs, not activating the upside targets yet. We've got this little one in play, 3% short term, 7% long term. Salesforce, CRM, downside targets here, a mini upside target, but really still below the cloud. Travelers Group, we see here upside targets on the short term and having crossed the cloud, looking a little bit better. I want to look at the long term. Long term looks good, upside targets there. Travelers looking one of the better looking stocks in the Dow 30. We go to United Health. We see here, this is looking pretty good. Upside targets activated, waiting for another one to activate, some 20% higher. So that's quite good. And we see here on the short-term chart looking good as well. And if we go to the long-term chart, again, that's looking good as well. So looking quite good there. We go to Verizon, also looking a little bit better here, just crossing the cloud and some upside targets. So towards the end of the alphabet in the Dow 30, starting to look a little bit better. Visa, not too bad here either. Upside target. Just if we make new lows on that daily chart, that will be bad because we'll activate the downside target. Making new highs there on the short-term chart, just waiting for that target to activate. And if we look at Walgreen Boots, we see here not looking good at all. Train tracks to the downside, so that's one to watch. And then last of all, looking at Walmart, one of the best looking charts in the Dow 30. Upside targets on the daily and on the 60-minute. And if we go to the long-term chart, we see here, again, really clear, two upside targets. So making new highs, one of the better looking stocks above the cloud there. So that's really, really interesting that we've had to wait till the end of the list to get some upside charts. But that's how the targets work. And you've just got to look at them as long-term, medium-term, and short-term to resolve those different time frames. Just thought I'd share that with you. If you want to know any more about the targets, feel free to message me. I've got a lot more longer presentations explaining how they work. Just let me know. Bye for now.